Hello, Boys State. My name is Ethan, and I'm from the media department here, and I am a media executive. And today we are sitting down with Dalton and Dominic from the Federalist Party running for governor and lieutenant governor. And we just wanted to sit down and have a conversation with the public. So our goal is to just keep you guys informed today, get you prepared. There's going to be a big debate. We just want to make sure that you're the most informed for the general election as the voting people. So our first question we're going to give it to is talking about traditional conservatism. So this was something that was big in the speeches yesterday. How does this look like? What is this going to look like for Boise State, and how are you going to bring back traditional conservatism?
So the way that we're looking at this is more along the lines of bringing back those traditional values, and we're going to stand firm in what we believe in. Although we're willing to compromise with the Nationalist Party to reach a united state, at the same time we're also wanting to stick to our hometown conservative values, which all of us believe in and the Federalist Party stands for.
So one of our main focuses is to serve the people, and the majority of the people here, as we know, are Federalists. So our main point is to conserve those traditional views to serve the people the best we can. So I think that's one of the big issues.
Many voters have asked about different things such as gun regulation and gun control, which has been a huge debate here at Boise State this week. What are your views on this? I know you spoke about keeping it the same. Many people have asked, will you add more? Many nationalists said you need a license to have a gun, or is it an open carry or a conceal and carry? What legislation would you propose, or would you keep it the same, or what is your stance on how we should deal with guns?
So what we're looking at right now is ensuring that the Second Amendment is still there. So the guns aren't taken away from the people, but however, common sense gun laws will be enforced, such as stricter background checks and psychological evaluations. So to have someone check on your background or evaluate your psychological state, it's nothing really big or new that we've added. So it's just common sense, and other than that, you still maintain the rights that you've had with the Second Amendment. Other than that, that's really the biggest stance that we have with that, is we're willing to compromise by, strengthening common sense gun laws, but at the same time, we're still keeping the same rights that the people had.
And just one further point, it's mainly to protect our citizens, those background checks and psych evaluations. In Kansas, we really haven't had a problem with gun violence. We are all gun owners and we're responsible, but it's to protect against overflow from other states, people moving in to have background checks and psych evals to make sure that there aren't other problems. So it's really just for protection of our citizens as our gun owning rights. So.
As a future governor for Boise State, how would you be willing to work with the Nationalist Party, or how are you going to gain support from them after the election? Because will many of them still be on their side, or how will you be able to gain their trust after the election and work across the aisle in legislation?
So a big thing we're looking at is Kansas is a better state united than it is divided. So although we're going to stick to our traditional hometown conservative values, there's no point in us being completely staunch and stingy and not allowing the nationalists to have any type of opinion. So if we're elected governor, we're not going to make sure that we make sure our Supreme Court is completely Federalist and not give nationalists any shot. So our goal throughout passing bills, throughout appointing positions, everything, we want to make sure that we include both parties and reach across that line, which is going to be a big thing we're going to see in the debate tonight, is reaching across that line to make a connection with both sides. But I think it means more coming from the Federalist Party to reach across that line with us having the current majority. So for us to reach across that line, we think that as a state, we're all better together than we are separated with our separate views. So to give everybody an opportunity and a chance is something we're definitely looking forward to doing. Talk on that.
Oh, good. I mean, in the words of Abraham Lincoln, a house divided cannot stand. So we want to unify the polarized ends of the spectrum that we see issues on a national level. We don't want to be constantly fighting each other, going into government shutdowns. We'd rather work together and collaborate to keep the best interests of the people in mind and really just try to serve everyone the best we can. So we will be looking to collaborate and having compromises, but still backing the Federalist agenda primarily. Of course, we're not closed-minded. We're going to remain open-minded and do everything we can for everybody, but there's only so much we can do.
One thing that voters have asked about is different situations such as climate change or the use of natural resources, and many people believe that sometimes we may run out of natural resources. We don't know. That's just one thing we don't know. So, what would be your proposition to work with the different Natural Resource Department or different ways to do that, to approach it, whether or not to address climate change, as many nationalists believe in?
It's okay. So right now we're working a lot with the Department of Natural Resources. If we get the governor position, there's means for a hydroelectric dam. There's means for a lot of renewable resource energy produced from our state. So if we're elected governor, we're going to make sure that those natural resources are protected, used when needed, but when it's avoidable, we're going to work to avoid that. So whether it be through a hydroelectric dam, whether it be through other conservative forms of energy that we can use that are renewable, we're going to make everything we can do to make that happen. And with our lieutenant governor being a previous head of the Department of Natural Resources, we're going to ensure that whatever happens, our society within that, we're going to make sure that we take care of our natural resources and preserve those for later times.
Yes. So previously I was chairman, I currently still am. I've elected a co-chair to serve for me while we campaign. But we have put in plans for a hydroelectric dam and for renewable energy sources. Currently we're focusing primarily on using the natural resource we have and then later converting over. We need to build business first. We will be passing mandates and protections against those natural resources, but right now one of our main focuses is building business. However, we do have those conservation issues in mind. We do provide budget for wildlife and wetlands maintenance, and to keep those parks regulated and safe. We'll provide for rangers and different types of things to keep those environmental issues.
The next one's for Dalton. So many have asked about what your process was for choosing your lieutenant governor. I know that many people from last night's caucus have expressed the cutting down from the 22 to the 7 and how that worked and getting it to the final 2. So if you guys could explain that process just so voters have a clear understanding.
So for anybody out there that was at the caucus, especially the Federalists, you saw the way that we ran our caucus. And we made sure that it was for the people and it was by the people. So although we had an electoral college vote, which really just meant that our party leaders selected out of those chosen from the people, the best that would best represent our platform. So after he picked those best representing our platform, we went back to a popular vote. So in the beginning, it was from popular vote, and in the end, it was from popular vote. So it came down to the people's decision, which is something we really like about the Federalist Party, is that we're able to make that decision by the people and not just by the party. So the way that we did the lieutenant governor choice is when we just separated from the last 2, the way that we counted the vote is we quite literally separated the room. We split the room in half and said anyone that wanted myself for governor went to this side, and anyone that wanted Dominic for governor went to the other side. So as I reached the majority, we had realized that there was a major split in the party. And in order to heal that, we decided that we were going to let the second best candidate run for lieutenant governor. So it made the most sense, and it was honestly the most fluid choice we could make, reuniting the party, and yet again leading a strong run for the governor position.
Last night in your speech, you talked about advocating for lower taxes. So with the lower taxes, many voters have asked, how do you stabilize the amount of inflow of money, for government, and how are you still going to make a profit without taxes? And that's one question that a lot of voters have. And what's your answer to that?
So, in fact, we were just talking about this because we find this to be a very important issue. So, although we want to allow moderately low taxes for all the state, we also want to put money into small businesses and business in general, so that promotes growth within the states and counties, and then that money that's developed from the counties because of the taxes that can then go back to them, so the counties do in the end get more money from the taxes that we're pulling, which in the end compensates for it. So once that's compensated, it'll also help with those that are without jobs and unemployed, because it'll then fill the jobs and it'll allow for us to work with them.
So exactly, I mean, one of the core traditional values for the Federalist Party is to believe in lower taxes. However, when we're taking office, there are no taxes in place currently. We had a blank slate as a state. So we are adding taxes, but they are low in taxes compared to what's currently in place in the state of Kansas. So we're providing moderately low taxes to promote business growth, for small businesses, large business, and to boost the economy, but it is still gathering funds for the government, which we can then increase the city and county budgets so that they can increase the standard of living, and we can fund our departments so that they can give out grants to promote more business and further improve the standard of living. So really we're trying to build business and grow the economy to help out those who are impoverished and unemployed, getting them jobs, and then they'll be paying taxes, which further feeds into our government. So really we just will have to have a full circular system working here, and soon enough we'll have a huge inflow of money. We've got some big ideas coming and a lot of great things in the works. So
Thank you guys. We're gonna start wrapping it up. Do you have confidence in your party's leadership? That's one of the big things is, can voters have confidence in your leadership? Because I know many of you guys have asked the questions, what's going on in some of the leadership positions? And I know I'd like you to address the situation of one of yours turning to a nationalist side. You know, I'd like you to address that. But what is your confidence in your leadership? Are you pretty confident?
So I'm going to talk to you guys. So here's how this works. So one of our party leaders did switch to the nationalist side to run for lieutenant governor. That in no way strickens the amount of force that we're coming into this election with. The Federalist Party is strong, the Federalist Party has been strong, and the Federalist Party will be strong. The values that we stand for, the things that we're planning to uphold, it's going to happen whether one of our party leaders is there or not. If the Nationalist Party decides to run for lieutenant governor because they need the votes that way, that's how they can run. But the Federalist Party is going to stand strong in what we believe in. We're going to ensure that everything that we do is what's best for the state, and we're going to appeal to the most voters that we can, but also sticking to our down-home conservative values.
yeah, just to reiterate that point, I'd like to commend all those who stayed loyal to the Federalist Party and showed that strength. We're not going to focus on what the other side did, and if that shows signs of weakness, we just would like to really hammer home the fact of our strength and our loyalty and commitment to our cause and our party, regardless of what others choose to do, what's in their best interest instead of the best interest of the people in their party. That's besides the point. But we do have very strong leadership, I still feel, and incredible loyalty and passion to our cause. So you the people have nothing to worry about in the Federalist cause. We're still for you and by you, by all means. So.
How have you guys prepared for tonight's debate? I know there's a lot of preparation and long nights that go into the planning, and I know many people were up late last night, you know, and getting work done, getting prepared for tonight's general election. How have you put in the effort? What have you guys done to plan for the debate process, the general election, and then moving in to become the governors?
So what we've done is we've really worked on making sure that our platform was well-rounded, our campaign was straight, and that everything aligned with our beliefs. So preparing for the debate, it's really just sticking to our values. So as much as this debate's going to throw questions at us that's maybe meant to throw us off, we're not going to be tricked, we're not going to be shot through, because we're going to stick to the values that we believe in. So the debate preparation is ensuring that we believe thoroughly in our values. We will prepare for the debate in ways of rebuttaling, but other than that, there's nothing we're really too terribly worried about when it comes to changing our values. So we're going to stay with our conservative values, we're going to stay with our Federalist values, we're going to make sure that the Federalist Party in the end will do what the Federalist Party was there to do, and we're going to make sure that this government and this state is ran to the best of its ability.
I don't really have much to say on this point, other than we have a very strong team of leaders from the Federalist Party, and we will be working together to put our best foot forward in this debate and really just showcase our strengths, which we have an abundant number of. So we're just going to be working together as a team, collaborating, just to put our best foot forward. So I think the debate's going to be great tonight. I'm looking forward to it on both sides to see what they're thinking, and I think Dalton's going to do a fantastic job. He's a great guy. He's got some great ideas, and I'm really looking forward to serving with him as Lieutenant Governor, serving under him, and just helping out in any way I can. So I'd just like to thank Dalton also for this opportunity, and thank you for this interview.
For sure. Well, I thank you guys for joining me. Is there any final thoughts? I know, quick, I'd like to ask Dalton, going up against Karthik tonight, he is good at debates, you know, and that's one thing that I've been informed of. So how do you feel prepared to combat that with sticking true, and how do you feel matched up against him in this debate?
All right, so that's a good question. So Karthik, I mean, he's a worthy guy, all right? He's also working hard for the governor position on the Nationalist Party. So when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter the debate skills of the person. It matters what you stand for and how you present that to your people. So as long as we put that out there and let everyone know what we believe in our platform, in the end, it's going to come down to who believes is the strongest group. So from what we believe, obviously the Federalists, we work hard. We make sure that everything gets done. For this debate, Karthik, I wish him the best of luck. He's got a lot coming for him. He's got a lot going for him. So it'll all come down to the votes in the end, and that's what we'll definitely look forward to.
Well, I thank you guys for your time. Thank you, voters, for tuning in and listening. And we just want to make sure you guys have the most information before you cast your votes tonight in the general election. So good luck to the both of you, Dalton and Dominic, and I wish you guys the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. We are here now with the Nationalist Party. We've got Karthik and we've got CJ here for running for governor and lieutenant governor of Boise State. So we're going to ask him very similar to what the Federalists did. We are going to ask them some questions and we want to make sure you guys have the most information before you cast your vote tonight in the general election. They're preparing for the debate. I know they've put a lot of long hours in and many long nights, I assume, to make sure that everything's ready for you guys. So we're going to start going down with some things that you guys have asked us, and we would like to hear your responses. So last night at the caucus, you talked about funding schools based on their size, and that was a big part of your speech. So what would you like to tell voters about this policy?
All right. We live in Kansas, and the education system has been a priority in policy for the state. A lot of rural areas are not getting the money they need. And while at the same time, a lot of the more bigger citywide school districts are getting the money a little too much than what they need. So we can all agree that up until recently, the regime of Brownback really kind of screwed with that. He essentially did something called a block contracting. And essentially what that was is that we had a huge pool of money where any school district can take as much money as they want out of it for their own purposes. Now, what that means is the most influential school districts by size and by just sheer power of student body, that sort of thing, they would take the most amount of money. Now, we can all agree that larger school districts require more amount of money than smaller school districts. But in the same time, we need to make sure that the funding is proportionate to the size, right, and to the wealth of that region. And again, equalizing and mitigating between funding is especially important in this state because we want to make sure that funding goes to where it needs to go and that we don't have lost funding and that everyone is happy with the money they got.
Another big thing that came up last night at caucus for both parties was the issue of firearms and gun control. Many voters feel there's both sides. Some say that we need stricter gun control laws, and some say that we need more relaxed. And so what is your position on this, and what would you encourage voters on?
Guys, the Second Amendment right is extremely important for this nation, for our culture, and what makes us American, right? So what we need is, first of all, your guys' guns are not getting taken away. Our guns, my guns, they're not getting taken away. Now, what that means, though, is there are people who are mentally ill, or they're crazy people, people who really don't have the maturity, the attitude, and the capability of owning weapons, right? And with that, we've seen a lot of gun violence recently. Kansas has been, up until recently, victim to that. You guys remember in Overland Park, the neo-Nazi Jewish Community Center shooting, which is literally 5 minutes from my home. So what's happening is, as a solution to this, or steps towards a solution, I am for increased background checks. So, this is more in-depth to a point where we can sustain ourselves. So, even more random background checks throughout the year too. But the second, there's a mental illness gap, there is a capability gap. Anything that triggers a red alert, we will make sure that those guns are shipped away from that individual until they can recheck and make sure that they're capable again.
So one of the things that the Nationalist Party last night talked about on their platform was healthcare. Many candidates talked about it, and you made a reference to it. But I was a little unclear on what the solution was. So could you clarify? Is it more of a socialized medicine? Is it towards Obamacare? What is your system for healthcare for Boise State?
All right. So again, a lot of low-income people are having issues with healthcare. The premiums are not proportional to how much money they have. In the same way, even people who are more wealthy, there's just an imbalance in what they're paying for premiums, that sort of thing. Obamacare is a step in the right direction in terms of, we need to expand or do something to make sure that everyone is equipped with healthcare. But in the same way, it was almost a sort of failure in which that there was a massive imbalance in premiums, that sort of thing. So again, this is something that I need to work very closely with the legislature, something that really requires me to not abuse the power of vetoing, but in fact respecting the decisions of the Kansas legislature. Because again, I'm working towards a bipartisan support, right? My campaign is bipartisan, and I'm expecting that legislature is going to work in a bipartisanship manner that we're trying to create here. So I fully trust that the legislature and my campaign, if I were to become governor, to establish a proper set means of healthcare and that sort of thing. So this is something that we'll really look into. This is going to be one of our priorities, and it's something that I really respect, and it's very important to me.
So as you're in the stages of coming up with what that solution may be, we'll probably hear more about that maybe in the debate tonight on what specifics sound like, because right now it sounds like you've kind of got a general idea, but we'll hammer that down later, right? So one thing you mentioned last night is you're a Green New Deal guy, is what you said. I'd like you to just kind of talk about that. I know, is it similar to an Ocasio-Cortez situation with the Green New Deal, or is it more on how you use renewable energy rather than natural resources? So I'd like just to hear your opinion on it, because it was a little unclear last night at the caucus. So
Sounds good.
let's hear it.
Yeah. So when I said Green New Deal guy, it was to an extent. I said that, hey, I like the idea of prioritizing on renewable energies. As society and technology progresses, we're only going to shift where our sources are for energy. Now here's the thing, mitigation is very important here, because having just oil and gas and fossil fuels and that sort of thing to sustain our society will only crap the environment. We don't want that to happen, right? Environment, again, is another one of my priorities. Now again, we can't just have all renewable energies either, because we cannot sustain ourselves. It's not efficient, the technology isn't there yet, but it is improving and that sort of thing. So what we need to do is we need to prioritize on investing and making sure that the production of renewable energies is there, that it's effective, and it betters our environment, right? In the same way, we also need to make sure that our oil and gas are doing just fine. We need to make sure that they are also sustaining our economies, because for the most part now, up until for a while, oil and gas will be the leaders in terms of where we're getting our energy from. And we need to make sure that they're doing their jobs and that they're well funded and that everything is going well with those guys up until renewable energies start to balance that stuff out. Again, this is mitigation. At some point, we're going to slowly recreate the balance to where environment is upheld as a priority, and more fossil fuels will decrease. But that's up until the future. I want to make sure that all sources of energy are used to make sure that Kansas is a cleaner and more adept society in terms of energy.
I know that many voters after the caucus, and especially in the early hours of this morning, they were strongly questioning the leadership in the Nationalist Party. And so I'd like to hear both of your opinions on this, because how can you gain trust? I just want to know, as the governor, how will you gain the voters' trust in you guys, first off, but also in the Nationalist Party leadership? And what are your thoughts on the current situation?
Right. So, if you might have known, my lieutenant governor here, he is a Federalist, and he'll speak more about it too. And now people are wondering, why would I put such a Federalist in such a high position here? Now, I'm calling for bipartisanship. You guys all know this by now. But what's important is that I stick to my words. And he's not just the only Federalist person I have in my campaign. I have multiple. And I'm really trying to establish that, I will have a little bit more liberal, moderate viewpoints on certain things. He has a little bit more conservative, moderate viewpoints. It just depends on the policy. So again, I've initiated sort of checks and balances within my campaign, where neither of us are going to go too far left or too far right, because we have each other to back and each other to let us know that hey, you're going a little too far on this. We need to have that sort of thing. Yeah. So I think that's very important, and I think again bipartisanship is something that we need to look to for the future, especially in this age of polarization. I think this is very effective, and I think that will gain a lot of trust within both parties and that sort of thing. Yep.
Sure thing. All right, so as my running partner stated, I am indeed a Federalist. In fact, for a time I was one of the Federalist Party leaders. So being one of those individuals in such a high position, I have become incredibly familiar with the Federalist platform. And as a whole, I would consider myself conservative. But there are many, many issues here at Boise State that are bipartisan. Now, we've talked about gun control. The Federalist Party platform actually does call for the same gun control plan as we have. I have been able to input a lot into this party platform so that we can appeal both to the Federalists as well as to the Nationalists. Now, with, as I said, as my partner said, the more liberal input of those of the National Party, as well as my being in such a high position in the cabinet, I would be able to put such a conservative viewpoint into perspective so that there would be more compromise capable for us within policy enacting. And this kind of situation we're in here, with me being the lieutenant governor as a Federalist, we're trying to create a symbol almost of the part of the boys state unity we hope to instill in everyone here. We're hoping to act very bipartisanly, and we figured that by having both a nationalist and a federalist running for the highest positions, we would help to show that that is our intention, is to have everybody work together for a common purpose, so as to protect things such as the environment, which we all care about, to impose not impose gun control to such a high degree, because of course we're Kansans, and of course we want to adhere to those values.